Thank you for listening to my podcast. Like my page on Facebook for daily inspirational quotes with pictures from Indian country and for other podcast interviews with successful Native or Indigenous people. Hello, listeners. Thank you for joining me on 21st Century Native Leaders. My name is Peter Desert III, and I am here with Jared Ivins Massey. Jared is a men's fancy dancer on the powwow circuit. Thank you for joining me, Jared.
Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So, tell me about yourself, your tribal affiliation, and where you come from.
All right. So my grandparents actually helped in raising me, and so they taught me that anytime that I am talking to people or I introduce myself, I have to do it first in my language. So if possible, I'll begin with that. Dagote, she Jared Massey, Gunze, Zitligai si on dashly, Anna Idaha Bunishti, Anna Wayu, just get a bidet you yet Nasha, Ia Irishly, not just Bunishti, Anna Shunk, did you done for Kuroshkai? So basically what I said was just, my name is Jared Massey, and I come from the White Mountain Apache tribe of northeastern Arizona, as well as the Great Navajo Nation. And I'm of the Mesquite people clan, born into the Slender Peak Standing Tall people clan of the White Mountain Apache people. And so that's how I identify myself as a White Mountain Apache.
Wow, that's awesome. I could hear some of the words that were similar to Navajo. I'm Navajo, so
Okay.
That's awesome. So tell me about your dancing career, your powwow career. Tell me about that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I don't really talk about that often, so it's really nice to finally be able to talk about powwow and dancing. And I'm relatively new to the powwow circuit, into this circle of dancing. And so I actually began dancing. I was first a hoop dancer, so I've been hoop dancing for about six years now. And so my teachers that actually taught me how to hoop dance are the ones that initiated me into the powwow circuit and circle. And so I began my men's Southern fancy dance at the Arizona State University Spring Powwow. And so that's where I had my initiation and a giveaway, as well as a special. And so the family that brought me into the circle, they're from the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Rikra Nation of the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation of North Dakota. And so they initiated me in that way, and they taught me the ways of the men's fancy dance. And my mentor is Mr. Tony Duncan and Christian Superman Parrish. And so those are the two fancy dancers that taught me a lot about what I know and how to dance and what the dance means. And so since dancing, I think that doors have been open to me that I think would never have been open to me otherwise had I not been dancing. And I wouldn't have been dancing if it wasn't for higher education, because I know that it was through attending Arizona State University that I came in contact with my mentors, and they're the ones that pretty much taught me about how I can balance living and sustaining myself as a Native American in the city and using powwow as that outlet.
Wow, that's powerful. So tell me about some of the doors dancing has opened up for you.
Yeah, definitely. So dancing powwow is actually something that I've always wanted to do growing up in Arizona, and I just never had the means to or the people to show me how to do it, just because I believe first you need to know your own ways from your tribe before you begin, learning the ways of different tribes. And so prior to being a men's fancy dancer, I'm an Apache War Dancer, and so the stories are pretty much similar. And so one of the doors that has been opened to me through dancing is the ability to travel and make connections and learn. And so one of the ways that I've been able to make connections is meeting people through the powwow circuit, because you travel and you meet them almost every weekend. You meet families, and one thing that I have discovered within the powwow circuit is that powwow people are very giving, in a sense that giveaways are very common, and that when you're given a gift, that's one of the greatest things that I guess that could come to your life. And so through powwow, I've been blessed with my first eagle feather, my first plume, and so those are very strong and powerful tools that as young men in my Apache culture, we hold on to. And so to be blessed with an eagle feather from a crow brother really instilled in me a sense of pride that I actually accomplished something. And so that's one accomplishment that I've gotten through powwow dancing, and just opportunities, like I said, to travel. And actually, while I was abroad, one of the things they wanted me to do was share the fancy dance. And so as a fancy dancer, I was able to share my talent in dancing with people across the world. And through my dancing, I am the founder of a small consulting family dance group. And so it's called the Painted Horse Productions. And so we do performances in across Indian country and just share the beauty of hoop dancing, Apache War Dancing, and men's fancy dancing. And so through my dancing, I've been able to travel to different reservations and use my dancing as a way of showing youth on reservation that obtaining a degree is more than just a piece of paper, that you can learn new things along the way. And so I'm sharing my story of dancing and using dancing as a way to spread a message of positivity is kind of the ultimate, I guess, accomplishment and reward I've received through men's fancy dancing.
That's powerful. So tell the audience a little bit about your recent travels.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited. So recently I just returned from a trip to Thailand. And so, like I've said, through higher education in Arizona State University specifically, they provide opportunities for Native youth. And ASU in particular has a strong passion for Native people. ASU actually has the largest Native student population in the country. This past year, there's about 3,000, close to 3,000 Native American students from across the United States that are currently living on campus and going to school on campus. And so through ASU, they have several different organizations that we are allowed to take advantage of. And so one of the organizations I'm a part of is called Chi Alpha, which is a student Christian youth ministry. And so what we do is, we provide ways, an outlet to seek authentic, positive community through discovering like higher faith. And so through this organization in ASU, we're able to travel, myself and about 6 other students at ASU, to Thailand and to be of service to the people of Thailand. Actually, Thailand is the #1 country for human sex trafficking. And so we were able to go there and just speak to women and speak life into them. And so through that, we were able to dance, or I was able to dance, teach English. I got to teach a village. We got to go into the outer parts of Bangkok, Thailand, and to a village that reminded me much like my reservation in terms of the land, the layout, the living situations. And so I got to teach these students, these young girls and boys about beadwork. So I brought beads with me from the States and buckskin. And so I got to teach them how to make simple beaded bracelets. And so a lot of the girls and boys left with a piece of the United States with them. And so before I taught them how to make the bracelets, I shared with them the history of beadwork and how we obtain beads through trade and how our people even manufacture their own beads. And so I was able to go into that specific village and teach them how to make beads, tell them about Native Americans, because a lot of them can't comprehend what that's like. And so we went to about 4 different villages outside of Bangkok. And then within Bangkok, we got to go to university there, explore what life is like. And it's crazy because education there is very cheap. You could go to school for a full year at a university in Thailand for like $10 American. And so it blew me away, because you can get a full-on education there and go all the way from your undergrad to your PhD. And if you speak English, you are more likely to get a very high-paying job. So while I was there, I got to speak with other people from the United States about, what opportunities are there. And they're just very intrigued with the fact that I was Native American and that they hadn't seen one, a person with my features there. Mm-hmm. And so that was a blessing, to be a representation of my people and a representation of what Indian country should be like in terms of, being that positive face. And a lot of reflection actually took place while I was there, because being on foreign land is not common for us, because in the States this is our land. Mm-hmm. And so going to overseas and stepping foot on the land that's not originally yours and the land that never belonged to you, it was a different feeling. So I can't imagine what if people feel that way when they come to the States, and if they feel that way. But I surely felt that way. So it was an amazing trip and a huge blessing.
That's powerful, and that's amazing to spread the work. So tell me about your education. What are you studying at ASU?
So I began as a justice studies major. I attended Grand Canyon University my freshman year on a running scholarship, and so I then transferred to ASU, and I am studying political science and communication. So I'm a double major, and so those are currently what I'm pursuing.
So, how important is networking on the powwow scene for your business?
Oh God, it's I think that's the most important thing, is meeting people. I think through powwow, because I'm a newcomer, what was expressed to me in the beginning was that you be prepared, because you might not even place wherever you go, because all the people at powwow, this is their way of life. They've been doing this entire lives, so they all know each other. So as a newcomer, I had to establish myself and really hone in on my skills and my people skills and my ability to know protocol within powwow circuit, because as a young person, you're not given that platform of speaking. And so respecting that way of life really was difficult for me, because I come from a society where, young people, we have that opportunity to speak to someone that's older than us. And so I really did get to speak with a lot of elders and learn about, the different tribes and what their protocol is. But through those networking, I've been invited to several tribes. About 2 years ago, when I first began dancing, through dancing, I got to do gigs at the Shoban Indian Festival, and so I got to do hoop dancing and fancy dancing at their Indian market at the casino. I got to do Apache War Dancing between the supper breaks during the Shoban Indian days, and that was probably one of my greatest trips through networking, and just being invited to the Mandan Hidatsa and Arikara reservation in North Dakota, and when I met a family that taught me more about powwow culture, and they've adopted me into their family, and so they've given me that right to identify myself as Hidatsa and Arikara, and they took me home with them to North Dakota last year in just a short powwow circuit there, and they really taught me about what it means to be a native man, and what it means to be a good husband and a good son and a good person in just your community. And so it was an honor to just go up there and visit their reservation and meet tribal leaders, and I got to meet the chairman of the tribe while I was at the powwow, and thankfully he remembered me, because prior, maybe 3 years ago actually, I got to speak at the White House Tribal Youth Gathering, and that's where I had first met the chairman. And so it's amazing that he remembered me. But going back to his reservation as a dancer and as a guest, it was like I went full circle in a way, in a sense. But it's awesome traveling to reservations. I think that it's odd. People think I'm odd because I fully enjoy visiting reservations. I love to visit reservations just to see the differences within my own and theirs. But I mean, that's been the greatest blessing, is just going to these reservations, not because they're paying me to, but because they're inviting me in, and I'm having that cultural exchange. So that's been the greatest reward.
That's awesome. So let's take this in a different direction. So tell me about your athletic ability, your fitness ability for dancing.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Apache, so at a young age we're taught that running is a way of life, and that our people are traditionally runners. So those genes have been embedded in me my entire life, and so running was something that I never really liked in high school. It was just something I guess I was good at. But that played a role in dancing, because fancy dancing, it's one of the fastest types of dancing in the powwow circuit. You have to have speed, you have to have creativity, you have to have a good mindset, a positive mindset. But one of the things that I was told when I began dancing was that you mimic the horse when you dance. So the tribes that began that fancy dancing, they did it in a way that they were honoring the horse, and the horse is known for its speed, its athleticism. It's a very smart animal, and so when we dance, we mimic that. And so with that, we have to be as healthy as a horse, which means having a healthy diet, exercising daily, being a strong person mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So all those areas play into being a good dancer. And so one of the ways that I prepare is I have friends in the Valley that are powwow dancers as well. And so we have like powwow practice at the community college or at a park or even on Mill Avenue, which is a very famous place, our I guess area within the Valley in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we would just go and practice and learn new steps. And so the family that I was telling you about earlier from North Dakota that taught me that are teaching me more about dancing, they will pick me up a lot of times and to show me, new moves and critique my dancing and to change certain parts of my dancing that will fit what they think would look good and what would be more fitting for me. Because it's more than dancing. It's about taking care of yourself and your body, because your body is ultimately, a temple, and that you should respect it as it is taking care of you and taking care of your spirit within. And so that's kind of what I do to prepare for dancing. Is just a lot of healthy foods, pasta. Although I have my cheat days, a lot of times it shows when you're not healthy and you dance.
That's awesome. So how do you balance dancing, school, and life?
I'm still learning that. I'm still learning that as a young person. I've definitely have kept my education first. Education is the reason why I'm down here. Education is what's been keeping me down here in the Valley and away from, or I guess, preparing for my return to the reservation. And so I think staying spiritually and physically active is what kind of helped me most. And so I have a schedule that has met my needs. So I'm used to being very busy. So my schedule usually is I work, school, work, and then dancing, or everything in between. And for a while, it did get overwhelming because I was in a fraternity, or I'm in a fraternity. I was balancing the student activities on campus. I'm involved very actively with my tribe and our politics that takes place there, and just my family. I'm very family oriented. So anything my family needs, I'll jump. So it does take a very, I guess, strong person, and time management is a very important part of that. Is learning when to say no. And I think that's the hardest thing for me, was learning when to say no and when to say yes. And so that was probably the number one difficult thing for me, was learning when to say no, because you want to do everything and you want to be everywhere. But that's something that I've taught myself to say no. But it does take a schedule. I have a planner. So I have a schedule of things that I do. So this is what kind of keeps me alive. Mm-hmm. I call this my Bible because it shows me everything I'm doing, where I need to go, what I'm doing on weekends, my time frame of who's coming into town to visit, when I'm traveling, what powwows are on which weekends, when I should schedule a flight. So it does take a planning, and I was never a planner. I hated planning and I hated writing down, but I had to learn that when I began going to school. And so it does take a lot of patience to create a planner, but in the end it's a great stress reliever, because you have everything down and your thoughts are all down and you see everything, and so you don't forget anything. And so that would be my encouragement to people, is if you're very busy and you have a family and you're juggling everything, a planner will make it a little better.
That's awesome. So what has been the hardest thing you've overcome to be a fancy dancer?
I think at the beginning, there are several aspects that made it a little difficult to dancing. But I think first of all, just dancing in general, like learning how to dance, because powwow music was not something that's a part of my people, our tribe. Learning the songs and learning when to stop, learning the trick songs, learning what these songs mean, learning that there are certain songs for certain times and certain styles of dancing, northern fancy, southern fancy, learning which songs are hard. And so that was probably one of the first things I had to overcome, was actually learning the different types of songs there is, and learning not to overstep, learning to end on time, learning how to spin and not nod my head when I'm dancing so my rocker is shaking, making sure that my stops are perfect, making sure that my arms are spinning. And so there's a lot of things that play into fancy dancing. It's more than just spinning, fast dancing. There's actually footwork. And when I was growing up, my grandparents taught me, that everything that you do is sacred. The way you walk, the way you talk, and the way you act. And so when I dancing, I try to embody that and embody those teachings of everything I do. There's a meaning for it. And when I dance, I mimic my horse a lot. I had a paint horse, and I had it my whole life. And so I guess that leads me into the second difficult thing about dancing was I had a painted horse, and he passed away just this past April. And so my horse is actually the staple of my outfit. So in my beadwork, it has a painted horse beadwork. My outfits all have my horse on it, and my moccasins. Everything about my outfit, I embodied my horse, and everything when I dance, I thought about my horse. And so losing my horse was one of the difficult things to overcome, and deciding if I wanted to, take a year off of dancing, or if I wanted to just stop dancing completely. But it took a lot of convincing, and it took some people within the powwow circuit to actually talk to me, important to me, and tell me, that you need to continue dancing. You need to continue that spirit of the horse. And so that was probably the second hardest thing I had to overcome, and just learning that everything happens for a reason, and that when you dance, it's more than just placing. Honestly, when I first started dancing, I didn't know that there was places within the powwow. I didn't know money was involved with the powwow. I just thought everyone was there to dance. That's what my naive mind was like going in. And I was so just not I didn't understand. I couldn't comprehend the idea of dancing for money. But when I began dancing more, I was like, oh, this is cool. You can place and you get money for your travel, and it makes sense because you travel all these miles to dance and be with the people. And so you need money to get there, you need money to get home, you need money to feed yourself. So I can see why money has played a role in that, because you need money to sustain yourself. And so when I finally discovered that people place in powwow, and sometimes it's a competition, my mind was blown. I was like, oh wow, this is cool. And it kind of became like an encouraging factor into my dancing. Was like, all right, if I dance and I get this money, then I could help my family that I'm traveling with. I could help pay for gas. I can help pitch in for food. I can buy new things for my outfit. And so it just all goes back into the powwow circuit, and just keeping money in Indian country. And so that's kind of why I like the idea. And so those, I guess, are the things the challenges I face when dancing.
That's true. I like that, to keep some of that money in Indian country. So how important is your culture and traditions?
I think anyone that knows me personally knows that I'm deeply rooted in my way of life. And so just a backstory, I truly believe that in order to know someone, you have to know where they came from and know their background. And so just a little background about me. I was born and raised on the Fort Apache Indian Reservation, which is located in northeastern Arizona. And so we're about 3 hours northeast from Phoenix, Arizona. And so we're located in the high country. So my homeland is surrounded by desert and mountains, pine trees, rivers, lakes, waterfalls. And so I was raised by teen parents. My mom had me when she was only 14, and my dad was 15. And because they were young parents, my grandparents stepped in and became my other parents. And so they instilled in me important Apache teachings, how to treat and respect all life, big and small. And so it was through their teachings that I learned about my Apache way of life. I learned about the different seasons, and when a good time for picking, when a good time for harvesting, when a good time for growing things. And actually, Apache is my first language. Because my grandparents helped raise me, they brought me up in that way of English being my second language and Apache being my first language of all. And that's something that I hold dear to me, is my ability to speak my language with my family members, especially my grandparents and my great-grandparents. And I think it's a special thing when you have your great-grandparents and your grandparents in your life. And I'm so thankful, and I never take for granted having both my grandparents and my great-grandparents in my life. And I actually got to see my great-grandmother last week while I was home. So my grandmother's mother, and so she cries every time I'm home and every time she sees me. And so that's an amazing thing for me, because it's something that we never thought we would see as Indigenous people, that we've survived this long, and having a resilient grandmother like her, it's kind of one of the things that has sparked a passion for my way of life. And my culture is very much rooted in who I am, and I guess everything I do. Because with school, you can write about your upbringing. I think that's what will set you apart from other people in your classrooms if you're attending college, is that they'll write about what things are in black and white. But with natives, we have an opportunity to show the dominant society about our way of life, and to share with them teachings that relate to our education and politics. Because through my political science classes, I'm able to write about tribal politics, which is a different insight than what my peers in class are writing about. So my professors are always drawn to me in my assignments, because it always incorporates my culture, my tradition, and my way of life. But during my travels, when I travel abroad, my grandparents, they get concerned, just because as Native people, we are taught that there are certain boundaries that we can't cross, and that once we go outside those boundaries, we're kind of like we're left without the protection. And so my grandparents are always telling me that they're praying for me. My great grandparents are always telling me they pray for me. But I still practice my way of life. I have four godchildren, and I have 2 godsons. And so when I was approached to have these godsons, I followed protocol in my Apache way of life of doing a giveaway for them. And so most people my age don't do giveaways, and they don't have godchildren. And so I wanted to honor them, because I had godparents, and my family had a giveaway when I got my godparents. And so I want to continue that teaching of, when you give generously, that child will receive generously, and they will have that same attitude of giving. And so I think that's one of the first teachings that my grandparents taught me, was that spirit of giving, that attitude of giving, and that everything you do, you give. And that's just a part of my way of life. But with that, Apache people, we're fierce people, where we could be very mean sometimes. It's just the way our culture is. And so I think I inherit that too from my family, is, are just within just our people, is that I can be very stubborn, and I can embrace when it's time to be a warrior, and when it's time to set aside that. And I'm just very thankful that I was born in the Apache and raised in the Apache, and will forever have my people with me.
That's powerful. That actually leads into my next question. In your opinion, what does it mean to be a modern Indian?
It's funny, because I've been asked that question before, and I always have difficulties answering it. And living in a society where we're challenged with maintaining our way of life that's ever changing, I think that it's important that we hold on to our way of life, but also moving with the world around us, because we can't avoid it. And living in a modern age, we have to learn this way of life, and we have to use the tools that the dominant society is using to preserve our way of life. And a good example of that is, I work for an organization called Unity, and so we have an app that allows Native youth to teach other Native youth how to speak their language. So through the app, you can actually speak to it, a Native, a word or phrase in your language, and other youth that have the app can learn that same phrase. And so you can go into it and learn different languages. And so I think that's a prime example of, this modern way of life is also benefiting us, and it's also helping us to preserve our language, preserve our culture. But being a modern native, being a modern native, I guess it's difficult for us, because I know I face my challenges of, do I belong in this world? Do I belong in this dominant society, or do I belong in my reservation with my people? But I know that a lot of people go through the same thing that I have faced, is that, when you return to the reservation, sometimes you face adversity because you've been away for so long. And so I think that that's something that we need to change, is that mindset of, because you left the reservation, it doesn't mean that your people were never on your mind, or that you're running from your people, because ultimately many of us are living off the reservation to get tools to bring back to our people. And it's those modern tools that they desperately need on the reservation that will ultimately carry us into the future. Because in order to live in this world, you have to know how to read, write, know how to manage money. You have to have an articulate way of speaking in order to communicate with the world around us. But there are also aspects of, learning your language and knowing your language is more important than all of those things. And knowing your culture is more important than all of those things, because what you learn back home with your people is greater than what you can learn in the classroom, because those teachers are much more knowledgeable, and those teachings come from thousands of years of resilience and thousands of years of credibility, thousands of years of survival. And so I think you just have to learn how to balance that, because something simple as just wearing your jewelry, wearing your beadwork, just wearing little things like that. By doing those things, you're walking with your people and you're preserving your way of life. And that also is a way to create dialogue, because I know that there's been many times where I wear beadwork, where I'll wear turquoise, where I'll wear my traditional outfits, or pieces of my outfits, or my moccasins, and people will ask me, like, where'd you get that? And so that opens up dialogue, and to let people know that, we're Native, we're still here, we've always been here, we've never left, and we're balancing this difficult task of preserving our way of life. And that's something that I think the dominant society will never have to deal with, is how much pressure is upon our people today in learning how to maintain their identity while receiving a Western education. And so I guess that's my little rant about that. It's a lot.
No, it's good. There's a lot there. Good content. No, you're good. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I guess I would just encourage people to, learn that, or take advantage of opportunities, because you never know what opportunities are out there for us, especially for Native Americans. And if they are young people listening to this podcast that will listen to it, I just want to encourage you that, higher education is something that's attainable. It's something that is can become reality, because my parents didn't help me with, getting to college. They didn't understand what it meant to go to college, because they never went to college. And so I had to figure everything out on my own. And so, being just a kid from the reservation that figured it out, I have no doubt in my mind that the youth of today can figure it out. And so I just want to encourage you, take advantage of higher education, because through higher education, you will be able to broaden your horizons and travel abroad, because the opportunities to travel abroad are endless, especially if you're a Native American, because there are people out there that want to help you and sponsor you. And just real quickly, so my trip abroad was made possible through donations from people. It was people that I made connections with that paid my way to go there, and made it possible for me. And it just takes that hard task of asking. So Native youth, never be afraid to ask. And adults, it's never too late to return to school, and it's never too late to, create a better life for yourself and your family, because as a young person, creating a life that I wish I had when I was younger for my younger siblings is one of the greatest blessings I have, is having a job that will not only sustain myself, but sustain my family on the reservation. And off the reservation, there's just so much that you can do, and so many tools that you could get to take back to your people, and just remembering where you come from when doing those things, because that's what will never leave you, is your home and your family, and that they'll always be there for you.
That's true. I like that. And how can people follow you? What social media platforms?
Yeah, definitely. So I started this new thing called Adventures, with our Chasing Adventures on social media. So I like to travel, and I travel often. And so people can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram name is Apache Poppy. And so there's a long story behind that. But you can follow me through pictures on Instagram. And I'm very interactive, and I'll post photos of my adventures and where I go. And I do that not to boast about what I'm doing or where I'm going. I do that so that youth know that it's possible, that you can travel, that you can work hard to make it in this world. And so that's the main reason why I post photos of where I go, is so that I take my people with me, and I take youth with me, and that they too can be where I'm at, not for my purpose, not for my own gain, but for them. And so I also have Facebook. They can follow me on Facebook. Facebook is I like to use Facebook as kind of a blog, so I'll do more of my long stories, a lot of reflections that from my trip and where I go are done on Facebook just because it's longer. And so on Facebook, my name is Jared Ivins Massey. Ivins is spelled Ivins, and so you can follow me on there. And so I like to, like I said, I love traveling, I love meeting new people and dancing. So if you want to follow me on any of those platforms, I would love to take you along on my adventures.
That's awesome. And do you want to do a plug for Unity or anything?
Yeah, definitely. So I work for Unity. Unity stands for United National Indian Tribal Youth, and it's the nation's first, largest, and oldest Native American youth organization in the country. And so you can follow us on social media as well. Just type in Unity Inc., INC, and you'll find all things around Native youth. We post information about opportunities, scholarships, conferences, ways to get involved, ways that we provide opportunities within Indian country for Native youth. And so we have our national conference coming up in July, which is the largest gathering of Native American youth. And so that will be in San Diego, California. And we'll have over 2,000 Native youth from across the United States as well as Canada. And so working for the organization, I'm seeing all the numbers that come in, and we've exceeded the 1,000 mark for registration, which is unheard of this early on. And our conference is July. So if you want to know more about our conference, you can visit our website at www.unityinc.org. And that's again, www.unityinc.org. So you can call our office and speak to me or interact with us on social media. And so it's going to be a great time. And so we just love the work that we do. And I'm just fortunate to continue my mission of being a voice for Indian country and for my people through my job.
That's awesome. And you mentioned something earlier about coming around and doing dance shows. How can people contact you for a performance?
That's an excellent question. So on my Instagram account as well as my Facebook account, you can message me there, but I also have an email address that they could contact me specifically for performances, which is just my first name, Jared .Massey, my last name, and the number 13 at gmail.com. So that's Jared.Massey 13 at gmail.com. And so I'm very flexible with my schedule. It varies within I guess the event, and so a lot of times I do just make myself available for educational purposes. So if it's an educational performance, then I love those because it gives me the opportunity to share my Apache way of life with an audience that would have otherwise never have met an Apache.
That's awesome. We're all set with an interview. If you could send me a background picture to put on the back of the podcast so people can put, a name to the face or maybe your regalia, that'd be great. But I appreciate you being on the show and, taking time to interview with me.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity. And I look forward to watching and seeing all the amazing things you're doing because this is unheard of. I was telling my boss about it this morning, and she was just in awe of this. And so what you're doing is what is needed in Indian country.
Absolutely, and I think that's why I started. I feel we need a voice for our people. We need. I see podcasts. A year and a half ago, I started this, and I saw no podcast with native content at all. I think there was one or two, but I mean, like on to talk about people's stories and what they're doing in Indian country and moving our people forward. I think that's why I started it, for people like you to, like with your Instagram to show that it is possible. So keep up the work and, keep pushing forward and, you're definitely a role model for our youth. So I'll talk with you later, man. Good job.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. If you like this episode, please go to iTunes and give us a review and comment on our Facebook page. Thank you for listening to our podcast. We appreciate all the support you will give us. If you know of anyone that we can interview, please message us on Facebook. Thank you.